Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is another installment of the VR that keeps on giving, my fifth VR to Musings by Masha and her tag Top Tarot Trumps. So, with it being the fifth installment, that means that we are at the Emperor. So, I will be sharing my top 5 favorite emperors as of this moment when I'm filming that are in my collection, and I have managed to keep it to 5. The Emperor is a card that I have struggled with, and certainly when I was first learning tarot, really struggled with. The Emperor is a card that I at times had a hard time finding a balanced way of reading, finding a way of reading that doesn't treat the Emperor card as an inherently negative one. I think I'm not alone in encountering Emperor representations, not just visually in decks, but representations of the card in books about tarot, for example, that depict the Emperor as patriarchy, effectively, right? As potentially authoritarian, as certainly a kind of top-down power structure related card. The dominance of particular institutions gets affiliated with this card a lot of the time. So it has taken, a lot of learning and of course lots of reading cards for myself and others, seeing how the Emperor card comes up to find, the many ways that this card can be interpreted for me. I have a better relationship with the Emperor card now, certainly, than when I started the Emperor and, the Hierophant, which will be the next installment, for different reasons. Were certainly struggles, especially as a feminist tarot reader. So I have 5 representations. They are fairly non-traditional, which shouldn't surprise anybody, but some more than others. So I'm excited to share them with you. The first Emperor that I want to share that I really like is the Emperor from the Stars of Umber Tarot by F.F. Songana. I'm not sure how available this deck is right now. This is a science fiction themed deck, which I backed on Kickstarter. And it is a beautiful deck. The minors are quite pippish. And I just think that this Emperor card is beautiful to look at. I like the kind of dreamy expression on the Emperor's face, looking off, perhaps over the multi-planetary kingdom that this Emperor oversees. I like the colors. And I feel like this, if this is a representation of maybe an epic space opera kind of book series, maybe trilogy of 600-page books, and this Emperor is a main figure in that series, then I want to read it. I just think this whole deck is really cool. And I like this Emperor in particular, so that's one of my favorites. I also really like the Emperor in the Dreaming Way Tarot. And this is a mass market deck. Many folks will have seen this deck before. It's very whimsical, many interesting fabrics on the clothing in this deck. And there's a couple of things about this Emperor that I think are quite interesting. The Emperor is in an environment that is a lot more lush and green, I think, than a lot of other Emperors are depicted in. Many have a more kind of stark, perhaps desert-like landscape, and this Emperor is almost in a garden, which I think is quite interesting. I like the facial expression of this Emperor that seems very thoughtful, that seems like he is perhaps grappling with the difficult decisions that come with, being in charge of something, right? Or being looked to as in charge of something. He doesn't look like he's having an easy time to me. He looks perhaps puzzled and, deep in thought about what to do next. I also find the attire that the emperor is wearing interesting. You can see, I mean, not just the plaids. I love the plaids, but you can see that he's got all of these kind of buckles that are binding him. And, I think that there's something there in terms of structures and systems and institutions being constraining, and the constraints that kind of normative expectations create, perhaps. I think that normative expectations are something I associate with the emperor, certainly. And here, even the emperor, who's thought of as the figure who perhaps oversees all of those things, who enforces all of those things, is constrained as well. And I think that that's an interesting take on this card. And I think this deck is beautiful, so I like this emperor a lot. I like the emperor in the Many Queens Tarot by Letty Jane Rannekamp. This emperor is whimsical to me in ways that emperors seldom are. I think also that this emperor depiction really kind of gives the emperor a vulnerability. Not just because this particular emperor is not wearing a top, but also, you can see the throne of the rams here is resting on this kind of pinpoint, like this could collapse, which I think is interesting. What holds up the emperor, literally or figuratively speaking? What holds up the systems and structures that the emperor can speak to? And how resilient, are those systems and structures really? I think is an interesting question. This emperor does not have a facial expression that screams perfect confidence to me. There is almost, a sense of trepidation in this emperor's face, which I think is a really interesting choice as well. And this is just an emperor that has never felt scary to me. Some emperors do, and this one doesn't. So this is definitely a favorite. For my fourth emperor, I picked one that doesn't have a person on it. It's the only one I chose that doesn't have a person on it. And that is the Navigator from the Slow Holler Tarot. The Navigator is also the tone of the Emperor card in the Nomad Tarot as well. So it is a kind of choice of how to depict this card that has happened in a couple of decks. They don't look alike. The Nomad Tarot and this one don't look alike, but they have a similar orientation towards the card, I think. And so here you really get the sense of using frames of reference and navigating through, what looks like a not easy terrain. I mean, it's definitely water, but there's also a wall here. And using the stars to guide. So using a system like the stars to navigate oneself through life. There's a sense here with this kind of squares that are coming out at the top. There's a sense of kind of imposing order on the world in a way to make it make sense in this emperor. And, the guidebook for this one, it's been a long time since I've read it, but the guidebook for this one talks about kind of, this is a figure, this navigator, who is good at navigating the system, who has learned to navigate systems that are not favorable, that are not of benefit to them. And it's not, it's not a cuddly card. This isn't a comforting card, but it is a card that can be called on, for particular kinds of strength and inspiration, I think. And so I like this a lot. The last Emperor that I will share that I enjoy is the Emperor from the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert. And there's a number of things that I like about this Emperor. I like the idea of the Emperor as a builder, as a carpenter, as someone who creates dwellings and homes, as someone who can, bring stability and structure. But this Emperor is also creating something decorative to be enjoyed by others. And there's a green man down here. And in some kind of Celtic feeling decks, the green man is chosen as the Emperor. So I think that that's a kind of interesting inclusion there. I think that this card, speaks a lot to hard work. You could see all the wood piled behind. If we presume that this Emperor did all of that work, that's a very hardworking Emperor. And this Emperor is creating, what I think would be a beautiful space. And is, taking it upon himself to create a structure that others will exist within, that others will use for various kinds of things, and taking pride in that. And doing that in a careful, thoughtful, deliberate way, I think is interesting. I think that this Emperor looks like Westley from The Princess Bride, which also is a thing that I like. So this deck has a lot of people in it that look like either, people that are familiar from various kind of, film or other kinds of context, or people that I know, or people that my friends know. These figures are very real, and this Emperor feels relatable to me. Like, he doesn't look like people in my life necessarily, but he feels like somebody that I know. And I think that is rare in tarot decks in general, and I would say particularly for cards like the Emperor, that is rare. So I think that is a beautiful representation to use for the Emperor in the Gaian Tarot. So my 5 Emperors that I have shared in this video: the Stars of Umber Tarot by F.F. Songana, the Dreaming Way Tarot by Rome Choi and Quan China, the Many Queens Tarot by Letty Jane Rennekamp, the Slow Holler Tarot collaborative deck, and the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert. Those are the Emperors in my collection that stand out as current favorites to me. I would love to hear what kinds of Emperors that you like, and if you have any particular ones in your collection that stand out for any reason, positive or negative. I think that both are interesting to talk about, actually. You can share those in the comments below. I would love to chat with you about tarot. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Masha for starting the tag. I'll see you all again soon. Bye.